Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting Space Snacks episode. It's not just any episode, it is the 50th episode of
Woo!
Space Snacks. And I am so thrilled to have my special guest, Loretta Hidalgo Whitesides, with me to celebrate my 50th. Hi, Loretta. How are you doing?
Hi, Cyan. Fantastic. I'm so honored to be here with you. It's so much fun.
Well, it's because, and we're going to talk about this, you are an inspiration to getting me to 50. And so I'm so thrilled that we can celebrate this together. You've influenced me so much. And we will get into all of those details. But for the people who are watching, and if you're watching, please drop a comment into the chat so we know that you're here. Tell us a little bit about you and your background.
Absolutely. So I've been passionate about space since I was a little girl. Got myself, into college to. I wanted to major in space, but they didn't have that for some reason, and so I ended up becoming an astrobiologist. I wanted to look at how do we take humanity beyond our home planet, and how do we grow our food and recycle our air and our water and live sustainably and other places, and hopefully that would help us learn how to live more sustainably back home too.
Funny because is it always been space ever since you were a kid?
Yes. Yeah. That's all I ever wanted to do. I mean, I did have a backup plan. If I wasn't going to be a space explorer, I would either work in Willy Wonka's chocolate factory or I would be a beekeeper. So I had it all worked out. I was going to be actually, I called it a honey farmer. I didn't know the word beekeeper. I just called it a honey farmer. So those are my backup plans. But yeah, no, it's always been space, number one.
You're telling me the Oompa Loompas didn't scare you? Because they terrified me.
Oh no, Oompa Loompas for sure scared me, but I was ignoring that part because obviously in real life there aren't Oompa Loompas. In the real chocolate factory there wouldn't be Oompa Loompas. There'd just be chocolate. So.
Oh, yes, I love that. And so, did you come from a family that was into space, or was this just something that was always just a part of you and your family was like, what? What's this little girl doing?
Yeah, my parents, I don't think had any idea where this was coming from or understood it very much. But luckily they were really supportive. So they just let me do whatever I want to do. So that was great. I think if there's a piece of it that's familiar or genetic, it's definitely from my grandfather. I call him Abuelito. And he was, I say I got my explorer gene from him. He loved flying and he always wanted to be a pilot. He loved the Spitfire. And even in his declining days, we'd be worried about him sitting in the home by himself. And I'd come visit and he'd say, no, Mija, I was having a great time. I was just fantasizing. When you walked in, I was just fantasizing about flying a Spitfire around. And so
I love that. I came out of the womb being like the plane, and wanting to fly. And World War II airplanes have always been my favorite. So you're like Spitfire or the P-51 or any of them. I just love that and that connection with flight. Now, did he ever get a chance to get his pilot's license?
No. So that was part of the story is my grandmother never let him fly. And so he was I always call that a frustrated pilot. He never got to fly. So I sort of was able to sort of carry on his dreams. And that's why I feel like I need to do this. And it's funny because, I have my astronaut Snoopy up here. Snoopy was sort of our mascot with my grandfather. He was World War I flying ace Snoopy and with the scarf, and I was astronaut Snoopy. So that was our.
That is such I love that it's such a wonderful connection and story because it provided support for you and somebody to share that love of exploration with. Were you always out running around exploring as a kid?
Absolutely. Oh, I loved it. I grew up in Northern California in the Redwoods, which is a great place to explore, and grew up on the Eel River, running around, backpacking, hiking, sleeping under the stars, learning the stars, and so that's just home for me.
When you think about how that sense of independence. I mean, I remember my parents being like, see you at dinner, and running through the woods and just off fishing and doing my own thing, and really kind of set the tone for me, I feel, as an explorer, especially as a female, and getting that confidence.
Totally. Yeah. When I was younger, I used to resent my mom for not being around or available or whatever. And as I get older, I'm way more grateful and appreciative of her for all the what freedom she gave us, because we really thrived and like figured stuff out and learned how to do it ourselves and learned how to take care of ourselves. And my sister and I are both incredibly powerful, fiercely independent women. So it worked.
Oh, same with me and my siblings, in that whole idea of, well, you're hungry, go cook something, figure things out. And I wonder, again, thinking about how I became the person I am. And I remember my mom saying, before she died, she's like, well, I was a little bit worried about you because you were just so independent, but you turned out okay. And I'm like, yeah.
You turned out great. What is she talking about?
So thinking about your career and some of the things that you've always aspired to do in space, becoming an astronaut, if you could go anywhere, where would you want to go and why?
Titan.
Titan.
Down. Like if I could go anywhere, I'm going to Titan.
Oh.
First of all, it's cool that it's the only place in the solar system that has the same sort of atmosphere that we have on Earth. Like there's actually an atmosphere on Titan, like a one atmosphere, the same pressure. So like you wouldn't even need a pressure suit on Titan. It's got an atmosphere. You don't need a spacesuit. I mean, you need oxygen. There's no oxygen on Titan. You'd have to breathe, but the pressure is just fine for when you get out of your spaceship.
Yeah.
And I mean, it might be hazy, hydrocarbon clouds, but if it wasn't too hazy on a clear day on Titan, you'd also have this magnificent Chesley Bonestell view of the Saturn rings. So don't ruin my image if you're an atmospheric scientist on Titan and like, never see those. I don't want to know. I'll be in orbit around Titan and I'll look at the rings of Saturn. And I just want to. My dream has always been to take a retirement cruise, pleasure cruise around the rings of Saturn. So that's why I go talk to children in classrooms and inspire them, because I need one of them to build me the dang rocket that can take me to Saturn in a reasonable time in my 90s. And go
you know what? I want to sign up for that. I want to be on that cruise around Saturn and its rings. You mentioned inspiration and how you are trying to inspire the next generation, not even the next generation, just anyone within your reach. Has that always been a part of you, or did you develop into that or become that over time?
Yeah, no, that's always in my daughter. I see it too. So I'm like, oh yeah, no, it's just in there. It's in the ingredients. But yeah, in grade school, in high school, I was, the senior class president. And, before that, I was one of the spirit leaders, like, the person at the rallies. We have two of us in front of the class, like getting everyone in their class pumped up for the rally. So yeah, I'm a natural born, like, instigator, leader, cheerleader. Yeah.
That is so fantastic. And then, the positivity that comes along with that when you're inspiring people. And so I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that something weird there. I don't know if we dropped out of the internet, but if you're still with us, drop a comment in. And so when you're thinking about some of the things that you did, you went to the ocean, the bottom of the ocean, with James Cameron. And this relatively early in your career. And so how did that happen?
I just dropped out of my PhD program. I mean, finished my master's degree. Yeah, but when she says the bottom of the ocean, I mean, we're talking the bottom of, like, Titanic depths of the ocean, like 2 miles underwater, 2 miles of water over your head. I mean, it was incredible.
Well, let me ask you, was that your big first exploration expedition, or did you do something before that?
No, in 1999, I'm really proud that I got invited to go with Pascal Lee on the Hot and Mars project to go up to Devon Island in the Canadian Arctic and do 2 weeks at the Houghton Crater before the Mars Society had built the Flashline Research Station. So we did a 2-week sortie mission out there.
Oh, that's amazing. So I can imagine, because it's so isolated. Were you scared? Were you nervous? Were you like, what was that like? Because, and how old were you to be like, wow, we're going up here and there's polar bears?
Would have been like 25 or 26. 23? No, that can't be right. 1999. I was born in 74. Oh, 9, 25. Yeah, I was probably 25.
Yeah, and here you are going to this really amazing remote place, and that crater, and what, I mean, you're an explorer, so like me, I'd be like, heck yeah. But I know for myself that there are times where, well, like when I went on the NOAA Teacher at Sea, where I'm like, I don't know anything about the ocean. Like, is this like Deadliest Catch? Is this gonna kill me? Polar bears.
That's really beautiful that you said that. Yeah, no, that's exactly what happened. So when I was in the Arctic, I wasn't afraid. We had dogs to protect us from polar bears. The polar bears are a legitimate threat. So yeah, we had dogs for that. So I felt comfortable with the dogs and shotguns, and we were prepared for polar bears. And that was the biggest threat. And it was 24 hours of daylight. You can't even be afraid of the dark in the Arctic. It was incredible, intoxicating experience to be on an ATV ride at midnight and have it be golden hour, like the time when you're supposed to take pictures because everything looks gorgeous. That's what it was like for like, hours on end. So no, I wasn't afraid in the Arctic. I was a pig in mud in the Arctic. Literally, it was really muddy on one of our ATV rides. There's this fabulous picture of me up to my knees in mud and my ATV's up to its wheels in mud. And we're having a blast on our ATV sortie. But in contrast, like you said, when I was on the boat, when I was on this expedition to the bottom of the ocean, that was legitimately terrifying because space I can do. That's my passion. That's my dream. I'm willing to take whatever risk I need to for space. But the ocean, that's terrifying. That thing could kill you. So I had to really deal with my mortality and fear. I mean, out in the middle, we were 3 days out into the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. No helicopter can reach us. It would take 3 days for anyone else to get to us. Maybe once every 2 weeks you'd see a ship in the very distance horizon, like going by. And there's no other submersible in the world that can go as deep as the Mirs can go. So the Russian Mir submersibles. So when we're down at depth, there's no one coming to rescue us. So that was when it got real for me as an explorer, because as an American, I'm always on the grid. Even backpacking, there's a helicopter or there's a satellite phone or there's something, there's help that can come and get me. But it's much a better analog. Psychologically, it's a much, much more profoundly powerful analog to be at the bottom of the ocean in the middle of the Atlantic, because it's a lot more like Mars. You are on your own. If something happens, you have to get out of it by yourself.
As you mentioned this, and so one of the things is the fear. It didn't stop you from taking this opportunity and embracing it. And that's one of the things that just sharing that message that you're going to be afraid, but you're going to have to figure out how to put that fear in its right place to some extent. Do you have a process for that of kind of like moving forward?
That's a great question. Yeah, I know that on my space flight, I will be afraid. I already know that because it is dangerous. We're flying in an experimental vehicle, and you can't know what would happen, and so you have to deal with that. So before I got on the submersible, I wrote a letter. Should I not come back? Here's what I want people to know. Here's what's important. Here's my message to the world and to people I love. And so making sure that you've gotten things handled helps. You don't get in denial. I don't want anyone to go in Pollyanna-like and say like, "Oh, it'll be fine. What's the big deal?" I want people to take this.
That to me sometimes terrifies me because of the superstition of like, am I manifesting this if I put it down, like if I don't come back? And I've thought about that in those situations for myself too. Similarly, last summer, I went on the Geordie's Resolution. out in the middle of the Antarctic circumpolar current, where if you fall overboard, we were 5 days out. We were in the oceanic pole of inaccessibility, where we were so far from anybody on land that when the ISS flew over, we were closer to the astronauts in space than a human on land. And there was nothing but deadly water. And I can't even imagine submersing myself into that deadly water far, far deep like you did. But you did it.
Yeah.
And you overcame that fear.
Yeah, no, it's great. A lot of, when we're a lot of people say, "Oh, I'll go to Mars one way," or "I'm not afraid," or that's, and it's easy to say it, when you're comfortable at home. And I think it is really valuable to go out and really see what happens in your inside of yourself when you're really facing something real like that. But yeah, it's definitely. But that's the whole game as an explorer, is to face that, like you said, face that fear and do it anyway. What you have to do is connected to something bigger. Like we talk about in SpaceKind Training, is like you have to have something bigger than yourself. You have to have your mission, and if you have a mission that's compelling enough and is what you're on Earth to do and is inspiring enough, then yeah, it's worth anything. Just go for it.
There's so much here. And so first of all, I want to get into two things. I want to talk about you're signed up to actually go on a suborbital flight. Now, is that in conjunction with your whole entire family or just you? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So in 2005, my then boyfriend, George Whitesides, and I bought tickets to do a suborbital space flight with Virgin Galactic. That was the very beginning of Virgin Galactic. Just started selling tickets like that year, 2005, and we got our tickets in April. And so we're founder astronauts. We'll be one of the first 100 to get to fly suborbitally with Virgin Galactic. And gosh, what was the other questions?
So
it's supposed to be our honeymoon flight. And we got married the next year in 2006, and we thought, we'll fly in 2007. We'll have a little bit of a delayed honeymoon, and we'll fly together because we both wanted to go to space. And he's like, don't go to space without me. And so we're like, okay, we'll go together. And then, it's been, space is hard, and it's been a number of years since then. And so we're super excited now to be, have already flown 5 people into space on 2 successful test flights, and gearing up to go back into power test flights this fall, and fly Richard Branson, and then hopefully fly me. And now because we have children,
yes,
we've decided to fly on different flights just to be responsible parents. So it's no longer our honeymoon flight. And so we'll still get to go to space together on different flights.
Well, and that brings up the thing that, I was really curious because you do have kids now. And what about them and bringing them on a flight in the future? How do you feel about that? I see it in your face. You're like,
Well, so first of all, we can't, right now the FAA doesn't allow minors to fly on the experimental vehicles because you have to sign a waiver and you have to be able to make that choice for yourself. But in the future, certainly kids are going to be part of the mix as well. And my daughter is raring to go. Whenever they will let her, she will fly. So I'm looking forward to that day because that'll be super fun. See my daughter go.
Oh, that is so that is amazing and so awesome. And so thinking about preparing for, space and the future in space, you wrote a book. And this book, I was part of your SpaceKind training. And so I want to talk about that, but I really want to talk about the inspiration behind the book here. And so what inspired you? And for those of you guys that don't know, it's called The New Right Stuff, which I love that name, The New Right Stuff. How did you why The New Right Stuff? And why did you write this book?
Thanks, Saya. So the right stuff is what we said in the 60s, how we referred to the Apollo astronauts as having the right stuff. And in the 60s, what it meant to the right stuff was to mean that you have nerves of steel, that you're smart, that you're strong, that you can handle anything, that you can endure anything. You can endure being in a box by yourself for 10 hours in darkness. You can endure cold, you can endure pain, you can endure fear, and, be able to pilot a spacecraft upside down and backwards. And so that was what we celebrated. And what I wanted to create was to build on the success of Apollo and the extraordinary achievements of that time and everything we've done as a species in space, and add in a new challenge for the future, for the next generation, and say, it's great to be strong, it's great to be smart, it's great to be tough, and to do what we really need to do to really make the future, the science fiction, the culture of the science fiction future of Star Wars and Star Trek that I want to live in, to go along with the spaceships. I wanted to add a layer of authenticity, of vulnerability, and an ability to storytelling, human connection, like not being up on a pedestal, but being someone who's real and who can connect and who can inspire. And he says, I don't always have it all together. Sometimes I am afraid, and but giving people access and making it accessible to be like them, not unattainable.
When I think about that, and vulnerability and showing vulnerability is something that you would not have seen in The Right Stuff. Because of that, I gotta be, perfect. And if I'm not perfect, then I'm not gonna go to space. Someone's not gonna take me. But we're complex individuals with all kinds of emotions. And so when I think about what I want, and that's, when you say the Star Trek generation, or that vision of inclusiveness uh, and just whole being going to space.
Yeah.
I feel like you really captured it in this book. But out of this, you've transitioned from not only writing this amazing book, but also starting a program called SpaceKind. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So basically, the book is a workbook. It's designed to help you do the training in your life. It's coaching. It's a manual. It's like, okay, do this, do that. Okay, let's go. And the subtitle is Using Space to Bring Out the Best in You, because we have this drive. Us spacers, we are united by this like passion and drive for space. And I'm inviting people to use that drive and that passion for space to make themselves who they've always wanted to be, to train and develop themselves, to be that person, and to help you fulfill on what you came to Earth to do. So that's what this is all designed to do. So the class, SpaceKind Training, is just to do it in a group setting. It's like a group class, like a workout class. Where you're gym buddies, so you need support to do this hard work. And so we all come together and we read a chapter of the book. We do exercises. We have challenges. Okay, your mission this week, should you choose to accept it? And it's a lot of fun. And so, yeah, we just finished our very first, just graduated our very first class of SpaceKind graduates. Scion's one of them. And we'll be starting our next class up August 24th. If anyone wants to join us and use space to bring out the best in you, you can go to spacekind.org and sign up today. And we refund 50% of your tuition. Is available back to you once you successfully complete it, as an added incentive to stick with it and follow through, because we all know that lots of us start things and have great intentions, but really what makes the difference is action and follow through and completion. And so that's what we're really committed to training you in.
Oh, I love that. Action, follow through, and completion. And not to be a spoiler alert, but you add in some Star Wars things. And so what role has Star Wars played in your life?
Yeah, so I'm a Jedi. That's, I can't hide it. So I have, I use Yoda. That's my Yuri's night costume. That was fabulous here. Thank you for that. So I'm a Jedi, and I'm passionate about the Force. I think it's just a really beautiful way to communicate that there's something bigger. Whether you believe in God or you believe in science or you both, the Force is a great sort of, I feel like it's a way that can speak to most people as that thing that's bigger than ourselves, that we can turn to, that we can lean on, that we can get guidance from, or get energy from, or support from. and inspire us on our journey.
You know what? I
yeah,
love that.
so I throw in some Yoda and some space references, some Star Wars references, because we're space people and it's fun.
It is, and just to show just how kindred spirits we are, I will put in my
I love that
Halloween
picture.
costume. Well, yeah, and
That's great.
so thinking along the same round of the influence. Now, as a kid, obviously watching, because we're not that far apart in age. Star Wars was a big part of my life growing up. Star Wars, the original Star Trek, but then the Next Generation, all of the movies, all of those things helped shape my vision of the future that I want. And I know it's shaped yours. Is there anything that you do that gives you inspiration now? Because those are the things that we've kind of grown up with. But is there anything new that's kind of come in and you're like, oh, wow?
Yeah, actually, there's a book series called Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler, and it's they call it science fiction, but it's pretty loosely science fiction, and it's pretty difficult to read actually, and because it's dystopian. And I am an optimist, so I love the utopian visions of the future. Those are my favorite. And it's dystopian, so it's actually really hard for me to read because I take it in way too much, and it unsettles me. So warning, this is a dystopian future, and if you can handle that or you can get through that, Octavia Butler wrote Parable of the Sower and Parable of the Talents, and in it, it's beautiful because she creates. They're in such a dystopian future, and it's an authoritarian regime, it's environmental collapse, societal collapse, all kinds of incredible challenges and difficulties. And even in that environment, she creates something called Earthseed, and it's called Earthseed: Parables of the Living, or Songs of Living. And she creates this whole culture around her, and they go off and they live in the mountains away from the chaos and the insanity, and they learn how to be self-sustaining and how to support each other and honor birth and honor death, and the whole. And she basically starts a religion, Earthseed, but the whole beauty of it is that the whole point of Earthseed is to persevere and survive through this incredibly hard time, such that they can help seed life beyond Earth. And that's what Earthseed means. And so they're like, I know it's tough right now. I know we're doing this hard time, but we're going to gather, we're going to support each other, and we're going to keep our eye on this vision and this purpose, which is that we are here to help make sure that Earth life spreads beyond Earth.
Wow, I love that. And she's such a great writer. And so now and it's funny because I haven't read that. And so I'm definitely going to put that on my reading list for, because I think that I'm like you, I'm an optimist and I like positive, but there's so much to learn from those dystopian futuristic ideas, because to some extent, you feel the dystopian around you. That we currently have we have the Black Lives Matter, and we have the climate change, and we have all of these grand challenges, but then we're also have this vision of humans becoming permanent in space. We have that to some extent in the ISS, but Moon, Mars, and beyond. And what is that going to look like, and how do we get there? And so thinking about bringing people together to celebrate, I want to ask you a couple of questions. One, food is a big thing. This is snacks. I want to ask you, what would you want to eat either on your voyage to Titan or when you're on Titan and having a meal in your habitat bubble? What would you want to eat?
Well, one of my favorite go-tos right now is a green smoothie. So I've been trying to cut down on my sugar, so I use a unsweetened soy milk and some frozen bananas. That has a lot of sugar, but at least it's just a fruit sugar. And spinach, as much spinach as I can shove in there. Some unsweetened peanut butter and some cinnamon, and just put stick the immersion blender in there. And you got this frozen frothy snack. And I think most of that stuff could be pretty, shelf stable for Mars. The spinach, I'm hoping we could grow a little bit of fresh spinach, like like you were talking about, like your shelf stable with like a little pinch of something fresh. I've never grown spinach, but maybe that's something we could have out there on our space farms. And so that's one of my favorites. And then the other one is I like to do quinoa with cashews, grape tomatoes, and avocado. Avocado is going to be tougher, I think, in space because that's a tree. But
that sounds amazing. And I love how healthy and fresh you're thinking. Have you always been that way? And now you got kids too, and so has that always been a part of you?
No, I have not. No, I am a recovering sugar addict. I had a candy bar a day habit when I was in my 20s, like a full size candy bar. I'm like 3 o'clock. I'm at the office. Obviously, it's time for a full size candy bar from the vending machine, and that was normal. Thankfully, that's no longer normal. And I mostly subsisted on carbs most of my life. I ate a mostly white diet, so it was like bread and pasta. Or the staples. They're shelf stable and they're always there, and I lived on that.
Well, and that's so hard because in our mind, those are our comfort foods, because that's what we grew up on. So when we're stressed or just want to feel better when it comes to food, you tend to revert back to that. And it's, for me, it's been very hard because I love the potato in every form. So French fries, potato chips,
right?
Mashed potatoes, scallop potatoes. I don't care. Just give me the potato. But retraining our brain, and part of that, those habits, how to get those good habits as an adult. How have you been kind of successful, or some tips that you've been able to use?
Yeah. So the first thing that happened, the first wake up call or whatever, when I was pregnant with my daughter, I was diagnosed with gestational diabetes.
Wow.
So that didn't work. So I had to, they sent me to a nutritionist to learn about food. And, because I remember when I was pregnant the first time, I was reading the book and it said you should eat a lean protein and a vegetable and a whatever, maybe a rice, wild rice or brown rice or something. And I remember being like, who eats like that? Nobody eats like that. That's ridiculous. And I just scoffed at it and I ignored it. And I thought, maybe Heidi Klum, eats like that. Runway models eat like that. And real human beings do not eat that way. And so and to be fair, I put on double the weight you're supposed to put on when you're pregnant. You're supposed to gain 30 pounds when you're pregnant. I put on 60 pounds with my son.
What were you eating? What were you craving?
Whatever the hell I wanted. That's the myth. It's a terrible myth we put in our society that you can eat whatever you want when you're pregnant. It stays on after the baby's born, and it's really damaging. And so I was eating ice cream and candy and whatever comfort food, and I don't feel good, so I'm going to eat, and I don't feel like it, and I'm eating for two. So and you're not eating for two. The other one's this big. They do not need a second serving of anything. That didn't work. So going to the nutritionist and being scared straight. The idea that like this makes me higher risk at pregnancy and at birth. They said my daughter her shoulder could get stuck on my pelvic bone and gets really serious complication in birth, and she could die or get maybe not die, but she would get some kind of injury to her spinal cord or something like that. So there's a lot of fear involved, and I got scared straight, and there's nothing better than being scared straight, because for diet, it's really easy to be like, I don't care. I don't mind living 10 years less or being 10 pounds heavier. Like, it's worth this milkshake. But when it's someone else's life that you're impacting, it gets a lot more real. And that's one of the gifts of children is, you're like, well, I got to lose this 10 pounds so I can dance at my daughter's wedding, or so that I can play ball with them. You're living for someone else. And so even if you don't have kids, though, I invite you to take that on, like with your mission or with your friends or with your family or with space, that there's something outside of you that you're doing this training for, that you're doing this for. Because then I cleaned up my diet. I went completely off sugar. That was the first time I went completely off sugar, was for her. And I started walking a half hour every day. I mean, I was 9 months pregnant and I was walking half an hour every day because life was at stake. And so that was fabulous. And then I got trained and then it became a habit and I made some better habits and I learned how to cook some new things. And I'm like, oh, quinoa is kind of good. Oh, broccoli's kind of good if you do it right. And so, you know, I learned some new tricks and I'm really grateful for that time because it helped train me and give me skills that I still use now.
You know, and that's so powerful, that message of finding something that is bigger than you, that can help you with your training. You know, you're becoming SpaceKind, the new right stuff. But also, I love how the habits, the idea of habits and how you break these bad habits and replace them with good ones. Because I know for me, when I go to a restaurant, I am always like, well, I really want that with French fries. And then I see the salad and I'm like, well, I know I should eat this. And I have this conversation in my head. And my husband's like, well, just choose one. And I'm like, and I know if I choose the salad, I will be happy and satisfied. But my initial choice is like the French fries and the burger, because for some reason I feel like this other choice will not be satisfactory. Like I'll be disappointed in it.
Yep.
And learning that for food. So you're going to be having your green smoothie on Titan with a quinoa bowl. And who are you going to be having it with and why? Who would you want to bring on that journey with you?
Oh, I definitely want to have my husband with me. He's another great space explorer, and I'm really excited that we have that passion that we share and have in common. And I think that would be amazing.
And is there anybody else you would want to bring along at dinner table besides your husband?
Oh yeah, if I'm bringing my crew, let's see, who else do I want on this my retirement cruise? I'd love to have my kids, absolutely. And I think I would love to have my friend Christy Stokey. We were roommates after college when we were at Johnson Space Center together, and she is a hoot. I wanted to be my backup plan if Space Explorer didn't work out was to be a honey farmer, and her backup plan if being an astronaut being in a Space Explorer didn't work out was to be a tulip farmer. And I'm like, oh, maybe my bees can pollinate the tulip. I don't even know if bees pollinate tulips, but that was what we were off. You know, we thought that was a great plan.
You know, I love that because thinking about who your crew is, and that's part of the book. And thinking, because having that support. And so when we talk about going beyond Earth, you got to have a crew. And that's so important, figuring out, but to survive, we think about that, you know, survival in space, you got to have your crew, you rely on your crew, but we don't apply that here on Earth. Well, on Earth, to survive and thrive, we need a crew, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I that's when people talk about abundance too, I was saying that, you know, one of the things I feel I'm most blessed in abundances is my crew. I have an extraordinary crew. In 1999 at the Space Generation Forum, I met all these extraordinary space people from all over the world, and that became the basis of our crew. And we get together every year for New Year's, and I don't think I would be who I am today without them. And we've all supported each other for 20 years now, and we go over our goals every year, and we support each other, and we celebrate our wins, and we come, you know, embrace, you know, support each other through our challenges. And so I would definitely, if I could fill up the spaceship, I would definitely bring my Space Gen crew with me as well.
Oh, you know, that's amazing. I love that. I want to go to some of the questions here and see what people are saying. So Ethan is saying, do you think the space industry is shifting toward valuing the new right stuff? As a fellow 74, I feel stuck in the middle. I prefer the new model, but so conditioned to play it safe for the old model.
Absolutely. No, we're 74. You're right in the middle of it, and it's a great year. I do feel like it's shifting, and I'm so excited. I'm so excited for what the millennials are bringing to the table and the younger people. I'm so grateful to them for shaking up the conversation. I see lots of movement towards a new attitude. It's slow and it's hard, but we are the change. You know, we are being the change we want to see. And so it's happening. You know, you see things at NASA. You see more inclusion, women and people of color. You see the renaming of NASA headquarters. Holy tamale!
I know.
You know, you see. I've been incredibly touched. By the SpaceX launch of NASA astronauts that we did last month, seeing Bob and Doug be authentic and vulnerable and joking around and being their friends. I mean, it was so sweet. I'm so used to, I worked in that. My first job out of college was in the NASA astronaut office in Houston. So I've worked a lot with NASA astronauts, and to see them be not just colleague, the right stuff would be to be professional and to be, we're going to survive our 2 weeks together on orbit, and, we're going to adore each other and, whatever. But to see them be lifelong friends and, be joking around with each other, and, their wives are also astronauts, and, they were being more themselves than I'm used to seeing astronauts be on screen. And I thought that was great. And the tweeting that you see from a lot of the current and retired astronauts is great. Sally Ride coming out was a big step forward for spacecraft. And even Jessica Meir's tweets, people who are actively in the core, you're just seeing more heart, more beauty, more showing more of a human side. And I think that's, setting a tone. And I think there's lots of great things happening right now. But my challenge to you, Ethan, is yes, it's hard because we're conditioned another way, but that's the whole beauty of it. Not because it's easy, but because it is hard, because that goal will serve, to bring out the best in us. And so you and I have to keep challenging myself to keep being vulnerable, keep being authentic, keep being the change that I want to see in the world. And if you do that, then you start being a role model in your circles. And then, the millennials will start coming to you as a mentor, and then you'll be able to shape and influence the future through them. And that's where it gets really powerful.
Oh, everything you say, it just resonates. And I know Bailey Burns is on. She's one of those up and coming, and hi Bailey. But what I love about Bailey, I'm following her on social media, is her vulnerability and talking about bringing the emotional side. And Bailey, I'm kind of going to butcher your age. I think she's like 24 or 25, just young, energetic, but thoughtful, and bringing your whole self. She's asking, how do we sign up? She's like, oh.
I know, we gotta have Bailey in the next class for sure. Yeah, no, go to spacekind.org. We want you, Bailey, for sure.
It's funny because Bailey was almost the person I was going to nominate when at the end of the class, when you said, who do you nominate to take this? And I was like, ooh, Bailey or Micaiah? Bailey or Micaiah? I'm like, well, do I have to choose? Because I want both of them in that class. Because thinking about how I'm a 70, born in 1970, Apollo baby, 8.5 months after Apollo 11. And so celebration, woohoo. But how we help inspire and support that next generation, that generation that's just coming in. But what I found is that I'm learning so much from them.
Yeah.
Their courage and their vulnerability, and being able to openly be on Instagram and crying about something. And I'm like, oh,
great. That's what you're I love it. I love there's this tweet thread where it's like, I failed calculus 3 times and my professor told me you could never be a physicist, and now I run the National Science Academies, and you're like, those are my favorite threads. It's like, no, look, we're human. Things do not work. It's been all kinds of horribleness. And
in talking about that, there was a big thing on Black in the Ivy, thinking about higher ed and PhD, but also the struggle of women. And I know that you were saying that you left your PhD program, and that must have been extremely hard. I literally almost left too. And I remember going to my my advisors. My 2 main advisors were male geologists. And then I had a female who was a cognitive psychologist. And I went to my first advisor he did my master's and PhD. And I was like, I'm done. I am leaving. He's just like, see you later, bye. And then I went to my next person and to him, and he was like, yeah, whatever, bye. And then I went to the girl, Sarah, and she was like, hell no, you're not going anywhere. You're now my student, and this is your office. And I was done within like a year because she mentored me and took me under her wing, and all the things that I didn't get from the other people who are on my committee, and how it just one person made a difference for me. And so,
and now you're Dr. Proctor.
And now I'm Dr. Proctor. But I was out the door because I couldn't handle it anymore.
Yeah.
I couldn't handle just the microaggressions and all of the craziness that I was seeing, and the inequities and all of those kinds of things. And like I said, I'm so thankful for what she did. And I feel like I'm thankful for what you're bringing to the table, Loretta, with all the things that you've done, not just here, because this is amazing, but also how I first met you really, or got to talk to you, was through Yuri's Night, a worldwide party. And so I know you talk about it all the time, but for those of my audience that may not know about Yuri's Night, could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, Yuri's Night is April 12th every year, or as close as we can to there. It's the anniversary of the first human to go into space, Yuri Gagarin, and the first space shuttle flight. The space shuttle took off April 12th, 1981, and it was 20 years to the day after Gagarin's flight in 1961. There's our cool logo. Looks like Speed Racer. Makes a great T-shirt. And we people say, "Oh, you're celebrating a Soviet cosmonaut." You're like, "No, we're celebrating humanity." We say it's a holiday we want to still be celebrated 10,000 years in the future. When the 4th of July may not be as relevant, or New Year's may not mean as much when we're around other stars. But the day that humanity first left our home world and started to venture out into the stars, I think when we're out in 12 different star sectors, could still be a day that we use to unite our species and celebrate what we're capable of. So we encourage people around the world to throw parties and share their love for space with people around them, to invite in artists and musicians to help share our message in their special way with our communities and get the world excited about what's possible with space.
And the thing about it's a party. It's the ultimate global space party. So we're talking about not just, we're celebrating in all the ways that make us human. We've got music, we've got art and entertainment, we've got technology, and the science, but we also got community and food and drink and all of those things that come together. And now when you think about Yuri's Night and where it is now versus when it was first that thought, how do you feel about, because I know with the pandemic, there was the online global celebration, but how do you feel about, I guess, the journey of where you are today with this?
Yeah, I'm really proud. I mean, it's really beautiful to see it still going strong 20 years later. And, we have, I host the party here in LA under the space shuttle here, and the party in Florida under the space shuttle there. Science been an ambassador at our events with their sash on, talking to the guests. The DJ's going in the background. But it's really great because we also have, parties in Colorado Springs that Space Foundation throws, and we have parties at the Museum of Flight in Seattle, and the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C., and we have lots of big parties in Germany, and we've had parties in the Middle East and Africa and Japan and Australia.
But that's what's so
great. And in Antarctica. Actually, we had really fun this year in Antarctica because they were the only party in the world that didn't have to do social distancing. They were like, "Come to our Yuri's Night, just hang out at the bar, no social distancing required in Antarctica, where we're wintering over." So that was super fun. We've had parties on the International Space Station and even on Mars. Curiosity thrown her own Yuri's Night party.
You know, and one of the things I like to ask my guests is, do you like to throw space themed parties? And of course, you throw the ultimate space themed party. But what about like in your home life with just your family? Do you throw space parties there?
Yes, when the kids were younger, I was, and I had more say in the party themes. Yeah, there was plenty of mostly Star Wars. We had, Jedi outfits and lightsabers, and we put Han Solo. You could freeze them in the Jello, and yeah, all kinds of fun stuff like that.
Now that the kids are getting older, and having two parents who are literally entrenched in space, are they following in that way, or do you see them diverging a little bit and like, space isn't me?
Well, I was such a rebel, and I wanted nothing. I mean, the reason I'm not an engineer is because my dad is an engineer.
Mm.
He's a civil engineer. He's a soils engineer, and I was like, as a teenager, of course, because I wanted to be nothing like my dad, and I wanted nothing to do with him, and so there's no way I was going to be an engineer, and so I went into science. Out of spite. No, out of like, whatever, that out of rebellion. That's the right word.
Oh, yeah.
So my whole life, I've just known that my kids are going to be rebellious, and there's no way they're going to like space. So I've just been bracing myself for that for 20 years. I always imagined, living in like a, O'Neillian settlement in L1 or something, and my kids being like, man, this is such a drag. Why do we have to live in space? Why can't we live on Earth like everyone else, Mom? So they like space right now, and my daughter wants to go to space. But I'm, as they get, into their teenage years, I'm braced for them being like thinking space is the lamest thing ever.
Oh, that's so funny, and thinking about how we have to embrace ourselves because they are independent, and giving them that room to kind of figure out who they are and what they want to be and what their mission here is, and yeah, SpaceKind, and all of those things. I'm just checking to see if there's any more questions. If you have a question in the last few minutes, please put it in the chat. Imran's on, and he says, I'll go to Yuri's Night in Antarctica. Oh, I know what I wanted to ask you. Have you been to Antarctica?
I haven't.
So is that, because you've been to the bottom of the ocean, you've probably traveled extensively, you've been to the Arctic. Where on earth do you still want to explore, and why?
That's a great question. Yeah, I've been to Japan, although it was for IAC, so it was only for like 3 days. And so that's Asia. So like my 3 days in Asia. I don't know if that counts. I've been to Africa. I went and saw the total eclipse of the sun in Zambia. I've been to Morocco for our first mini honeymoon, and I've been to Egypt with my in-laws to explore the pyramids and things and the tombs in Egypt. So in Africa, I've done backpack through Europe, been to conferences in Europe a number of times. Been to South America for International Space University. I did a summer in Chile. And we got to go to the European Southern Observatory and Paranal and the Atacama. Yes. Amazing. And then with my family 2 years ago, we did Buenos Aires and Patagonia. And so that was incredible. So for my continent checklist, I've never been to Australia or New Zealand, and I've never been to Antarctica. So those are definitely on my list. And then Iceland is and Banff. I've been to a lot of Canada. I've seen more of Canada than most Canadians. I'm very proud to say, because I've been to Edmonton and Yellowknife, and I've been to Devon Island, Resolute Bay. I've been to and British Columbia. I've been to St. John's, Newfoundland, and Ottawa and Montreal and all that. But I haven't been to Banff, and so I really want to go there.
Have you been to Alaska?
Yes, I've been to Alaska. I went on a cruise to celebrate my parents' 40th wedding anniversary. They took us to Alaska, and we got to go. I gotta tell
you, New Zealand, love New Zealand. Oh my goodness. And Australia, I've been lucky because I've been to everywhere except Antarctica, and so that's the one I've been on every continent now. And so I'm like, I got to go there. What were you gonna say?
It's funny because I think my parents just went on a cruise to like Antarctica a couple years ago. It was like the one where you go to like South America and then they do like a day trip to Antarctica or something. And I'm like, wait, what? My parents have been to Antarctica?
I was gonna say, were you like, how, you didn't take me? But
We'll go. You and I.
some of the things like, do you have do you have a quest to do some of the challenges like, Everest Base Camp or, top of Kilimanjaro or those kinds of things?
I would love to see Everest Base Camp and Kilimanjaro. I love mountains. I'm a mountain girl. Like the ocean terrifies me. I'm not a beach girl, but I'm a mountain girl and a river girl. So yeah, anytime I could spend in the mountains, I'm all down for that. But not for any particular like check a box or anything. But just be out. I think Everest is a spiritual experience. I mean, it's just a sacred place, and I would love to be able to spend time in Nepal and Tibet.
No, I feel the same way. And in thinking about how, for me, traveling has been the most rewarding experience I've ever had, because of the interactions with other people and their cultures. And like you say, the kind of the rituals and their history and the food, can't deny that my palate has been just blown open because of the places that I've traveled around the world and the cuisine that I've gotten to experience. I'm trying to see if we have one more question in here. Yay, Canada. I'm from Prince George, British Columbia, now in LA.
Cool.
Yeah, and she says you've got to go to Banff and the ice fields, but you haven't been to Iceland either. And so, yeah, some of those great areas to explore. Loretta, we only have a few more minutes left, and I can't tell you how much I have enjoyed our conversation. Is there any kind of message that you want to give to the people who are listening?
I want everyone to take on that, life isn't a spectator sport. It's kind of like Burning Man. There's no, we don't want any spectators. You're all leaders. And my goal is to train as many leaders as I can because everybody needs someone to lean on. I want us to have more meaningful connections, and I want you to have your crew. I want you to start building your crew. Cyan asked me who I want to take to Saturn with me. Well, who do you want to take to space with you? Who do you want around you to help train you and build you up? And because what we're doing is hard, and when you're doing things that are hard, you need a lot of support. And we're really good at doing things on our own, but we also need to get better asking for help and asking for support. And so I'm challenging each of you to go and find out the people who you can. I want everyone to have at least 5 people that you can call at 2 a.m. when you hit the wall and don't feel like you should go on anymore. And it's just, you should quit your PhD program or, give up your dream because it's just getting too hard, and have, a deep bench of people who will come up behind you and say, no, we got your back. We'll help you. What do you need? And, we believe in you. So, and then to be able to give that to everyone and everyone be working and fulfilling on all of our missions, we'll be cooking with gas here in no time.
It's so true that you say that, because in your crew, it just takes one that says the right thing to you that just flips everything around, especially when you're having a hard time, especially in situations like we're in now with COVID. And so get your crew. I love it. There is just a couple more questions. One is, what is your favorite sci-fi film besides Star Wars?
Oh, goodness. I thought I knew the answer. Well, let's see. It's not, I know there is one, but I can't think of what it is right now. Maybe Guardians of the Galaxy or.
But it's not Contact.
It's not Contact.
Just checking.
Yeah, but that helps me remind me though. It's Arrival.
Oh, Arrival. Yes.
I haven't seen Arrival. It's fabulous because it's about contact with aliens, or aliens arriving at Earth, and this incredible woman scientist who works out how to communicate with them and save the world in the process. And it's just a mind-bending, beautiful story. And I think it's very well done, very novel story, and unlike anything I'd ever seen before on screen. I really enjoyed Arrival.
Well, I couldn't ask for a better 50th episode, Loretta. Thank you for everything that you've done to inspire me and all of those within your reach and beyond. And so how do people follow you or, contact you or follow you on social media?
Yeah, please. So I'm on Twitter at Loretta Whitesides, because my last name is too long for Twitter. So just take all the vowels out of white and put sides on the end. At Instagram is Loretta Hidalgo Whitesides, which is tough because then you got to figure out how to spell Hidalgo. Maybe just Google it. But most important is I really invite you all to join us on our next round of SpaceKind training. It'll be only the second cohort ever. It'll be really exciting to get in the ground floor of this new movement we're starting to bring the new right stuff to our industry and really create a pan-industry Jedi Council. So please go to spacekind.org today and sign up and save yourself a space in the August 24th class, and you won't regret it. It's going to be extraordinary.
I second that, and I will drop that website into our chat for the Facebook chat after we say goodbye, which is what we're doing now. Thank you to everybody who tuned in today. Thank you, Loretta, and everybody. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, Sam.